I must go now. We are coming with you. Don't try to stop us.
What is this?
I watched Miss Thornwood walk away from Ashworth Manor with everything she owned in a single worn bag. From the balcony, she looked small against the vast sweep of the drive, a figure in grey disappearing into the afternoon light while the household pretended not to notice. The servants had wept when I dismissed her. Even the housekeeper, who never showed emotion, had asked me to reconsider. I had not reconsidered. A governess who encouraged my wards to question their place, who filled their heads with ideas above their station, who taught them to think rather than obey, she had no place in a ducal household. My nieces needed discipline, not philosophy. They needed to understand that their future lay in suitable marriages, not in the wild dreams Miss Thornwood had been nurturing. I had done what was necessary. I was certain of it. Then I saw movement at the edge of my vision. The side door. The one the servants used to access the kitchen gardens opened slowly, cautiously. Two small figures emerged, each carrying a hastily packed bag, each moving with the careful determination of children who have made a decision and will not be swayed. Sophia, 12 years old, her dark hair escaping its ribbons. Charlotte, 10 years old, clutching her favorite book to her chest. My wards. My brother's orphaned daughters. The children I had taken in when fever claimed their parents 3 years ago. They were following their governess. For a moment, I simply stared. Children did not leave great houses. Children did not choose servants over guardians. Children did not walk away from wealth and security toward an uncertain future with a woman who had nothing. But Sophia and Charlotte were not hesitating. They moved across the lawn with purpose, their eyes fixed on the retreating figure of Miss Thornwood. They had not looked back at the house. They had not looked for me. They had simply decided to leave, and they were leaving. I should have called out. I should have summoned servants, stopped them, dragged them back to the safety of the only home they had known for 3 years. Instead, I found myself frozen. Because something in the way they walked, heads high, shoulders squared, determined despite their fear, told me that stopping them would not be enough. They would try again. They would find another way. They had chosen Miss Thornwood over me, and nothing I could do would change that choice. The question I should have been asking finally formed in my mind. Why? Why would 2 girls who had every material comfort choose to follow a penniless governess into the unknown? Why would they risk everything, their future, their security, their place in society, for a woman I had dismissed as unsuitable? What had Miss Thornwood given them that I, with all my wealth and power, had failed to provide? I descended from the balcony before I could think better of it. If you want to know what happened when the Duke caught up with his wards, and the truth they forced him to hear, subscribe right now. We are fighting to reach 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps us grow. Stay with me. This story is about to reveal everything. I caught them at the end of the drive. Miss Thornwood had stopped when she heard my footsteps, turning with an expression of weary resignation. She clearly expected me to rage, to threaten, to exercise the power of my position to force the girls back to the house. Sophia and Charlotte ran to her side immediately, positioning themselves as shields between their governess and their guardian. Their faces held no fear of me, only defiance. Your Grace. Miss Thornwood's voice was steady. I did not ask them to follow me. I did not know they were coming. I believe you. The words surprised me as much as they surprised her. But I would like to understand why they chose to. Because you sent her away. Sophia's voice cut through the afternoon air. Because you dismissed the only person in that house who actually cares about us. I am your guardian. I have provided everything. You have provided things. Charlotte, usually the quieter of the two, spoke with unexpected force. You have provided rooms and clothes and food and tutors. You have never provided yourself. I stared at my younger niece, struggling to comprehend her words. I do not understand. No. Sophia's eyes held a pain I had never seen before. You do not. That is the entire problem. Miss Thornwood placed gentle hands on both girls' shoulders. Your Grace, perhaps this conversation should happen in private. They are children. What private matters could require? They are grieving children who lost their parents 3 years ago and have been trying to tell you they are drowning ever since. Miss Thornwood's composure cracked slightly, revealing anger beneath. If you dismiss what they are saying now, you will lose them forever. Not because they will run away, you are powerful enough to prevent that. But because their hearts will close, and you will never reach them again. I looked at Sophia and Charlotte. Really looked at them, perhaps for the first time since I had taken them in. Their defiance was not the rebellion of spoiled children. It was the desperation of souls who had been screaming into a void. Come back to the house, I said quietly. All of you. We will talk. My name is Edmund Ashworth, and I have been failing my nieces for 3 years. I did not know this until that afternoon on the drive. I had believed I was doing everything right. Providing stability after tragedy, ensuring their education, preparing them for the futures their station demanded. But sitting in the library with Miss Thornwood and my wards, I began to understand how blind I had been. Tell me, I said to Sophia, the words harder to speak than I had anticipated. Tell me what I have done wrong. You never talk to us. Sophia's voice was small but steady. At meals, you read your correspondence. In the evenings, you retreat to your study. On the rare occasions you acknowledge our existence, you ask about our lessons and move on. I assumed you preferred the company of your governess. We did. Because she was the only person who would listen. Charlotte twisted her hands in her lap. When Mama and Papa died, you came to the funeral. You spoke to the solicitors. You arranged for us to move here. But you never once asked how we felt about any of it. I remembered the funeral. The arrangements. The efficiency with which I had handled the crisis. I did not remember a single conversation with the girls about their grief. I thought children needed routine. Stability. I thought involving you in adult matters would only cause more distress. We needed to be seen. Sophia's voice broke. We needed someone to acknowledge that our world had ended. Instead, we were treated like pieces of furniture being relocated to a new house. Miss Thornwood spoke gently. Grief does not follow schedules, Your Grace. Children do not process loss by being given new rooms and new governess. They process it by being held, being heard, being allowed to cry without being told to compose themselves. I never told them to compose themselves. You never told them anything. Miss Thornwood's directness startled me. In 3 years, you have barely spoken to them beyond pleasantries. They have been ghosts in their own home, waiting for someone to notice they exist. I thought of the dinners where I had read my correspondence. The evenings in my study. The hundreds of small moments when I could have engaged but chose distance instead. I did not know how, I admitted. I have never. I was not raised with warmth. I did not know how to provide it. That is not an excuse. Sophia's tears were falling freely now. That is an explanation. But you have had 3 years to learn. You chose not to. The accusation landed like a blow. Because she was right. This is where the Duke begins to understand. If you are feeling this confrontation, drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. I read every single one. And please subscribe, we cannot grow without you. I asked Miss Thornwood to stay. Not as a governess, I could hardly reinstate her after dismissing her so publicly. But as a guest, while we determined what came next. She accepted warily. I am not doing this for you, she said, when the girls had been sent to bed. I am doing it for them. They have attached themselves to me, and disappearing now would cause more harm. I understand. Do you? Because I am not certain you understand anything about these children. I should have been offended. A servant speaking to a duke with such directness was unthinkable. But something had shifted in me since the confrontation on the drive. Help me understand, I said. Tell me what I have been missing. Miss Thornwood studied me for a long moment. Sophia cries every night before she sleeps. She tries to muffle the sound with her pillow, but the walls are thin and I hear her. She cries for her mother, who used to sing her to sleep. She cries for her father, who used to carry her on his shoulders. She cries because she is 12 years old and the only person who has shown her consistent affection in 3 years is a governess you just dismissed. I said nothing. I did not trust my voice. Charlotte has nightmares about the fever that killed her parents. She wakes screaming, convinced that everyone she loves will die. I have spent countless nights holding her, promising her that some things last. But how can she believe me when her guardian treats her like an inconvenience? I never treated her. You never treated her at all. That is the point. Miss Thornwood's composure finally cracked. You walked past these children as though they were wallpaper. You made decisions about their lives without consulting them. You dismissed the one person who showed them love because she did not fit your idea of appropriate education. I thought you were filling their heads with inappropriate ideas. I was filling their heads with hope. With the belief that they mattered as people, not just as future brides to be auctioned to the highest bidder. She stood, too agitated to remain seated. Do you know what Sophia wants to be? A naturalist. She spends hours drawing plants and insects, cataloguing the species she finds in the gardens. She has genuine talent. A naturalist. That is hardly a suitable occupation for a duke's niece. I know. I have heard you say it. So has she. Miss Thornwood's eyes blazed. Do you know what Charlotte dreams about? Writing stories. She has notebooks filled with tales she has invented, adventures and romances and fantasies that reveal a remarkable imagination. Children have fancies. They grow out of them. Some fancies are vocations waiting to be recognized. But you would never know that, because you have never asked these girls what they think, what they dream, what they want from their lives. The accusation hung in the air between us. I had never asked. I had assumed I knew what they needed because I knew what society expected. I had never considered that they might have inner lives worth exploring. What do I do? The question came out raw, desperate. How do I fix this? Miss Thornwood's anger softened slightly. You cannot fix 3 years of neglect in one conversation. But you can start by actually being present. Sit with them at meals and put away your correspondence. Ask them questions and listen to the answers. Show up for the moments that matter to them, even if they do not matter to you. And if that is not enough, then you will have tried. And that, at least, is more than you have done before. The following weeks were the most difficult of my life. I had been the Duke of Ashworth since I was 23. I had managed estates, navigated politics, commanded the respect of men who had known my father and grandfather. I had never failed at anything. But connecting with 2 grieving children proved harder than any challenge I had faced before. I began by following Miss Thornwood's advice literally. I put away my correspondence at meals. I asked Sophia and Charlotte about their studies, their interests, their thoughts. At first, they did not respond. They looked at me with suspicion, waiting for this strange new attention to evaporate. They answered in monosyllables, watching my face for signs that I was merely performing interest. I did not give up. I asked to see Sophia's nature drawings. She showed them to me reluctantly, clearly expecting criticism. Instead, I found myself genuinely impressed. These are remarkable, I said. The detail in this butterfly's wings, did you observe this specimen yourself? Yes. In the garden. Miss Thornwood helped me identify the species. Would you show me where you found it? The surprise on her face was painful to witness. The simple request to spend time with her doing something she loved had clearly never occurred to her as a possibility. You want to go to the garden? With me? If you would permit it. We walked through the grounds together for the first time in 3 years. Sophia pointed out insects and plants, explaining what she had learned, sharing observations I would never have made on my own. Her voice grew more animated as she spoke, her guard lowering as she realized I was actually listening. Miss Thornwood says every creature has a purpose in the natural order, she told me. Even the ones people think are ugly or useless. They all contribute something. Miss Thornwood is wise. She is. That is why we tried to follow her. Sophia looked at me directly. We did not trust that you would let her stay. We did not trust that anything would change. Do you trust it now? She considered the question seriously. I do not know yet. But you came to the garden. That is more than you have done before. Charlotte was harder to reach. Where Sophia responded to attention once it was offered, Charlotte remained guarded. She watched my efforts with her sister but did not invite similar engagement. When I asked about her stories, she said they were private. When I suggested we spend time together, she claimed she was busy with lessons. She does not trust easily, Miss Thornwood explained, when I expressed frustration. Sophia's grief is loud, she cries, she rages, she demands attention. Charlotte's grief is quiet. She has built walls that will take much longer to breach. What do I do? Be patient. Show up consistently. Let her see that your interest in Sophia is not a passing fancy that will disappear when the novelty fades. I tried. I continued my walks with Sophia, my presence at meals, my attempts at conversation. I watched Charlotte watching me, evaluating, waiting. 3 weeks after the confrontation on the drive, she finally spoke. "Uncle Edmund." Her voice was small, hesitant. "May I show you something?" She led me to her room, where a wooden box sat beneath her bed. Inside were dozens of notebooks, each filled with cramped handwriting. "These are my stories," she said. "Miss Thornwood is the only person who has ever read them." I took the offered notebook carefully. "May I?" She nodded. I read the first few pages, then several more. Charlotte's prose was rough. She was 10 years old, after all, but her imagination was extraordinary. She had created entire worlds, populated by characters who felt real, driven by conflicts that reflected genuine understanding of human nature. "This is remarkable," I said, and meant it. "You have a gift, Charlotte. You do not think it is silly? I think it is the furthest thing from silly. This is genuine talent that deserves to be nurtured." She began to cry, not the loud sobs of her sister, but quiet tears that rolled down her cheeks while she fought to maintain composure. "I thought you would laugh. I thought you would say I was wasting my time. I have wasted your time by not paying attention to what matters to you. I will not make that mistake again." It was not forgiveness. It was not the instant repair of 3 years of damage. But it was a beginning. We are building trust now. If you are feeling this slow repair, share this story with someone who understands that change takes time. Subscribe. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Every single one of you matters. Miss Thornwood remained at Ashworth Manor. At first, her presence was awkward. She was neither governess nor guest, existing in a liminal space that defied social convention. But as the weeks passed, her role evolved naturally. She became my advisor. Not on matters of estate or politics, but on matters of the heart. She taught me how to speak to my nieces, how to listen rather than lecture, how to show up for them in ways that actually mattered. "You are not a cruel man," she told me one evening, as we walked in the garden after the girls had gone to bed. "You are simply a man who was never taught kindness." That sounds like cruelty with better justification. It is not. Cruelty requires intent to harm. You had no such intent. You were simply oblivious. Oblivious to the suffering of 2 children in my care. That is hardly a defense. It is an explanation. And explanations matter, because they show us what needs to change. She paused by a rose bush, her face thoughtful in the fading light. "You are changing, Your Grace. I see it every day. The way you listen. The way you ask questions. The way you show up for them. It does not feel like enough. It never will. That is part of being a parent or a guardian. The fear that you are failing, that you are not giving them what they need, that you are making mistakes that will haunt them forever." She smiled slightly. "But the fact that you feel that fear means you care. And caring is the foundation of everything else." I looked at this woman who had transformed my household not through confrontation, but through steady presence and quiet wisdom. "Why do you care so much about them?" I asked. "You were their governess. You had no obligation to love them. I had every obligation. They were placed in my care, and I promised myself I would give them what no one had given me. Attention, affection, the belief that they mattered. What no one had given you." Her expression closed slightly. "That is a story for another time, Your Grace." The story came eventually. Miss Eleanor Thornwood had been orphaned at 8 years old, raised by an uncle who saw her as an inconvenience to be managed rather than a child to be loved. She had been sent to schools that taught compliance over curiosity, trained to be a governess because it was the only respectable option for a woman without fortune or connections. "I know what it feels like to be invisible," she told me. "To exist in a house where no one notices whether you are happy or sad, thriving or struggling." I saw the same emptiness in Sophia and Charlotte's eyes, and I could not bear to let them suffer as I had suffered. "You saved them." I tried to help them. Saving implies a completed action. They still need you, Your Grace. They need their guardian to become the father figure they lost. I am not their father. No. But you are the closest thing they have. And they are desperate for someone to fill that role, even imperfectly. I thought about my own father, distant, demanding, impossible to please. I had sworn never to repeat his coldness, yet I had done exactly that with my nieces. "I do not know how to be warm," I admitted. "I was not raised with warmth. Neither was I. Yet I learned." She met my eyes. "Warmth is not an inborn trait. It is a choice, made again and again, every time you show up for someone who needs you. You make it sound simple. It is simple. It is just not easy." 6 months after I nearly lost my nieces on the drive, I asked Miss Thornwood to marry me. It was not a romantic proposal. It was, perhaps, the most honest conversation I had ever had. "I have come to depend on you," I told her. "Not just for the girls, though they need you desperately. For myself. You have taught me things I did not know I needed to learn. That is hardly a foundation for marriage. It is the best foundation I can imagine. I am not offering you passion or poetry. I am offering you partnership. A shared purpose. A life where your wisdom is valued and your presence is essential. And if I refuse, then I will accept your decision. I will not pressure you or manipulate you. But I will miss you every day for the rest of my life." She was silent for a long moment. "I am a governess, Your Grace. The scandal of such a match would. The scandal is irrelevant to me. The opinions of society are irrelevant. What matters is whether you could be happy here, with me, with Sophia and Charlotte. I am happy with them. I have been happy since the day I arrived. And with me." She looked at me, really looked, the way she had been teaching me to look at my nieces. "You have changed," she said finally. "The man who dismissed me 3 months ago would never have asked this question. That man would have assumed he knew what I wanted without bothering to ask. That man was a fool. That man was broken in ways he did not understand. But he is healing." She took a breath. "I will marry you, Edmund. Not because you are a duke, but because you have become someone worth marrying." We were married quietly, in the estate chapel, with only the household staff and my nieces in attendance. Sophia and Charlotte served as attendants, their faces bright with a joy I had rarely seen from them. When the ceremony concluded, they threw themselves at Eleanor, for that was her name now, Eleanor Ashworth, with an enthusiasm that startled the vicar. "Does this mean you will never leave?" Charlotte asked. "It means I will never leave," Eleanor confirmed. "It means we are a family now. A real family. The realest family I have ever had." I watched my wife embrace my nieces, feeling something unfamiliar warm my chest. I had spent most of my life alone, even when surrounded by people. I had believed that emotional distance was strength, that caring was weakness. Eleanor had taught me otherwise. The years that followed were transformative. Sophia pursued her interest in natural history, eventually publishing papers that earned respect from scholars who initially dismissed her because of her gender. She never forgot the uncle who had walked with her in the garden, who had listened to her observations, who had supported her dreams when society told her to abandon them. Charlotte became a writer not of the small domestic stories expected of women, but of novels that challenged and provoked and demanded attention. She dedicated her first book to the governess who believed in stories, and the uncle who learned to listen. And Eleanor and I built a life together. It was not the passionate romance of novels. It was something deeper, a partnership forged through shared purpose, strengthened by daily choices to show up for each other. We had 3 children of our own, raised with the warmth that neither of us had received as children. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked Eleanor once, 20 years into our marriage. Marrying a man who had to be taught how to care. Everyone has to be taught how to care. Some people simply learn earlier than others. She took my hand. What I regret is the years before I came here. The years when you were alone, struggling with grief and responsibility without anyone to help you. I was not alone. I simply did not know how to reach out. Then I am glad I came. I am glad we found each other. I thought about the afternoon on the drive, the moment I had seen Sophia and Charlotte following their governess, choosing uncertainty over the cold comfort I had provided. That moment had saved me, not because I had stopped them from leaving, but because I had finally been forced to ask why. 30 years after Eleanor walked away from Ashworth Manor with everything she owned in a single bag, I found myself watching from the same balcony. But the scene below was different now. The drive was filled with carriages, family arriving for the celebration of our anniversary. Sophia's children ran across the lawn, chasing each other with the carefree joy of youth. Charlotte's husband helped her from their carriage, her latest novel tucked under his arm. Our own children, now grown with families of their own, gathered in the garden where Eleanor and I had walked so many times. Eleanor appeared beside me, grey-haired now but still beautiful to my eyes. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I am thinking about the day I nearly lost everything. The day Sophia and Charlotte tried to follow you, and I finally understood how badly I had failed them. That was not failure, Edmund. That was awakening. Awakening. You woke up. You saw what you had been blind to. You chose to change." She leaned against me. "That is not failure. That is courage." I watched my family. The family I had almost destroyed through neglect, now flourishing because I had learned to love them properly. "I dismissed the governess my wards loved," I said quietly, "not knowing they planned to leave with her. And when you discovered their plan, I learned the most important lesson of my life. That love is not provided through things. It is provided through presence. Through attention. Through choosing, every day, to show up for the people who need you. Have you succeeded?" "I am still trying. I suspect I will be trying until my last breath." Eleanor smiled. "That is all any of us can do. Keep trying. Keep showing up. Keep loving, even when it is hard." The Duke had dismissed the governess his wards loved. They had planned to leave with her. And from that moment of crisis, a family had been born. Thank you for staying with me through this entire story. If it moved you, if it reminded you that it is never too late to become the person your loved ones need, please subscribe. We are fighting so hard to reach 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps us get there. Share this with someone who understands that family is built through presence, not provision. Comment where you are watching from. I read every single one, and I want to say hello to you. Until next time, remember, the people trying to leave your life might be the ones who need you most. Listen to them before it is too late.